All right, welcome everybody. This is going to be going through some simplifying questions and working on multiplying and dividing. So we're going to start with simplifying because that is 90% of what it takes to multiply. And then we are going to get to multiplying and dividing radicals in a second. We are going to skip around. So let's work with some of these questions like number 5, 6, 7, 8. This is just simplifying radicals. And I like number 5. Pretty good question here. Some things we need to keep track of. First of all, we have a cube root, and that is very, very important. That means we need to circle triplets, right? We need 3 things at a time as we circle these pairs of numbers. I also see a negative sign, okay? Hopefully you've watched the other video that has to do with handling negatives inside of radicals, right? When it comes to square roots, big trouble. Negative answers are impossible when it comes to square roots, but this is a cube root, and so we are not, completely out of luck. We can handle this. Now, when it comes to cube roots, the easiest way to handle this negative is this negative gets basically a free pass out of the exponent, out of the radical. Sorry, I said exponent there. So the easiest way to handle this is just move it outside for free and just kind of rewrite the question like this. And then that way you don't have to worry about the negative later on. The reason the negative gets to come out front for free is because we're going to work on taking this in parts, right? And we could think about, this thing up here as being -1 times 250. And -1, perfect cube. That would be -1 times -1 times -1. And so we can bring that out front, and that's what we're doing. Now, you don't have to think about it like that. What I would recommend is just remember, if you have a negative sign and a cube, free trip gets to come straight out front. Now, the next thing we need to do is think cube root of 250. Do we have this memorized? Is this a perfect cube? No. So let's break it down. Do we know anything that multiplies to make 250? 25 and 10. Easy. Nice job. Now we need to split this up. I'm thinking we've got 5 times 5 and we've got 5 times 2. Hopefully those are easy factors for you. Again, we want to now focus on just the ends, right? Prime, 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 prime. And so these that are not the ends, we don't ever really need to think about those again. Don't let those confuse you. Sometimes they get in people's heads, and I'll tell you about that in a second. So now that we see a cube root and we have our prime factorization, we want to circle triplets. Do we have triplets of any numbers? Of course, we have triplets of the 5. So the 5 is coming out front, right? This is 5 times 5 times 5, and that's 125. But then you cube root that, and it gets down to 5. So if you have any circles of 5s, 1 5 comes out front, right? Now, it needs to join the negative sign that's already there, right? And so don't forget what's already out there. Looks like we're going to have a -5 on the outside, the negative and the 5. Then we've got the cube root, and then everything that is left over stays inside the radical. So it would just be a 2. Now, here's where people mess up, right? They think, oh, there's a 2 and there's a 10 left over. But no, this 10 is gone. This 10 got broken up into the 5 and the 2. So these numbers that you've broken up, some people like to cross them out just so they don't confuse them. The 2 is the only thing left over. The 2 goes there. Easy. And that's the whole question. If you can handle that question, honestly, you probably understand this well enough to get an A. And so if that feels good, then you're in a good spot. Now let's jump down straight to number 7 because I don't like 6 very much. Number 7 is introducing some stuff that I didn't even get to cover in my simplifying, right? We have a 4th root, which you never really hear about. What do you think we're going to do for a 4th root? Yeah, we're just going to circle 4, right? We're just going to circle quads or quadruples, or whatever you want to think about. Another thing that we want to keep in mind, we're circling 4s, but also this 3 is starting out on the outside. So if anything's going to come outside, it's not going to be alone. It's going to have to join the 3. And so we don't want to forget about that 3. And we'll talk about how you combine them in a second. But first of all, 162. Is that a perfect fourth? Who knows? Because nobody has the fourths memorized. Let's just break it up. What two numbers multiply to make 162? A little weird. 81 and 2. Yeah, easy. Great job. Excellent job. We're going to split up the 81. 9 and 9. Split up the 9s. 3 and 3 and 3 and 3. And again, all these numbers that got split up, we don't need to be confused by those. And so here's what we got left. We've got a 3 and a 3 and a 3 and a 3 and a 2. We need to be circling 4 at a time. Do we have any numbers that have 4? Yep. Got 4 3s. Do we have any numbers that are left over? Yes, we have a 2. So on the outside is a 3 that was already there, joined by one more 3. And whenever you have multiple things, you're always going to use multiplication. Okay, so this is going to be 3 times 3, which is going to be 9. Okay, then we still have the 4th root. A lot of times people forget this 4, so don't forget that. And then we have 1 left over 2, and so we're going to have 1 left over 2. Leftovers go on the inside. Again, not too bad. If you're handling this, you are doing a great job. Now we're going to do probably just one of these questions as well. Let's do number 9. These questions introduce exponents with variables and how we handle these. Now, the good news is these are super easy, okay? Let's do our exponents first, and then let's do our variables first, and then we'll do our numbers. So, variables. We've got x to the 4th, and the way you want to write this is just x, 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 x. Right? This is 4 x's in a row. And how do you split up x to the 4th? You just write it as 4 x's. Right? And then we've got 9 y's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You can tell my y's actually kind of got better as I practiced them. And so, now that we've got our letters written out, all we have to do is say, how many of them do we want to circle at a time? We want to circle 2 of them because we've got square roots and we need pairs for squares. Nice little rhyme there. And so we need pairs of x's. So we've got 2 x's. And so we're going to have 1 x come out front, 2 x come out front. So when we do our square root, we should have x squared out front. Do we have any leftover x's? No. So there should not be any x's left over on the inside. And obviously that's a pretty easy process. Same thing for the y's. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 y's are coming out. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we should have y to the power of 4 on the outside. How many y's are on the inside? 1. And maybe I want to leave a little bit of room for my numbers to go on the inside there. So letters are a piece of cake to handle. You just write them out and circle them. That's the easiest way to handle it. I'm going to move quickly through the numbers because we've been doing really well with this. 32, let's do 8 times 4. That would be 4 times 2. That would be 2 times 2. That would be 2 times 2. And it looks like I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't need the 4. I don't need the 8. I don't need the 4. I have 5 2s. I need to circle 2 of them at a time. So I'm going to circle this group, This one is left over. So I know a 2 is going to be inside here because I have 1 left over 2. I have both of these groups. I'm going to need to take out 1, 2, and another 2. And whenever you have multiple things combining, you're always going to use multiplication. So 2 times 2 is 4. So this is our answer. I'll rewrite it in one color with a little bit more room so that it looks nicer. But there we go. That's the answer. Really not too hard, okay? Variables do not spice it up that much in reality. Hopefully that feels pretty good. What we're going to do now is move onto the back of this paper if you're working in person and I've handed it out to you, or just follow along. And we're going to talk about multiplying radicals. Okay, what do you do if you have a square root times a square root? How do you handle that? The good news is it is pretty easy. We are going to take the outsides and we're going to multiply them. And then, guess what? Take the insides. You're going to multiply them. And that's it. That's multiplying radicals. Literally just take the 2 outside numbers and multiply them together. Take the 2 inside numbers and you multiply those together. Now, the bad news is that you're not done with this question yet. Anytime you're working with these radicals in Algebra 2, if you have a number in the inside that is a perfect square or possibly has a piece of that number that is a perfect square, you need to do the whole process of breaking it down, simplifying it, pulling out the perfect square parts, leaving alone the not perfect square parts. And so for this question, that's exactly what we have to do. We still have to continue breaking this number down. I'll go, so that it doesn't take too long, I'll go ahead and handle this part here. We're going to have 10 times 18. 10 times 18, that's pretty easy. We just did 10 times 18, right? So I didn't have to think too hard to come up with 180. 10 is 2 times 5. 18 is 2 times 9. And 9 is 3 times 3. I don't need the 10. Don't need the 18. I don't need the 9. I have 2, 5, 2, 3, 3. I need doubles because I have a square root. And so I need 2's are going to come outside. I need 3's are going to come outside. And I have 5's left over. So maybe I won't circle them because that's a little confusing. Maybe I'll give them a little diamond box. 5's are left over. So when I'm going to finish this question, and I'm trying to write my answer here, the only thing left over is this 5. The 2's are gone. The 3's are gone. There's no letters. And so 5 is the only thing left over. On the outside, I need to take out a 2 and take out a 3. And I have a negative 6 that's already there. So I need to combine the negative 6 and the 2 and the 3. And I need to use multiplication. And so 6 times 2 is 12. 12 times 3 is 36. And remember, this started with a negative sign, so I have negative 36 on the outside. That is how you solve this question, and you feel pretty good. So when it comes to multiplying, you are just going to multiply the outsides, then multiply the insides, and handle it from there. Now, we're going to do one more multiplying question. We've got a question like number 9. A question like number 9 is the same thing, multiply the outsides, multiply the insides, but maybe you see this 9 and this 24, and you think, I don't know how to multiply these two numbers together, right? 9 times 24 is a big number. If you've got it memorized, it's not hard, but without that, it's pretty difficult. And so your other option is why don't we just try to simplify this number, make it smaller, and then once we simplify it, we'll be in a pretty good spot. So we're going to go by simplifying this. We're going to go ahead and leave this one alone. We're not going to mess with this one. We can simplify this first by just free pass. Negative gets to come out front. And then we can simplify this by taking the 24 and breaking it up. 6 times 4, 3 times 2, 2 times 2. I need cubes. I've got 3 2s that are the same, 1 left over 3. The 2s need to come outside. And so let's start over, or not start over, but let's continue this question at this point. Times 2 times -5, which is -10. And then the only thing left over is the 3. And don't forget your cube root. So what we've done now is simplify this second term, make it look smaller, make it easier to multiply. Okay, now multiplying is very easy. 2 times 10, -20. We've still got the cube root. And we've got 9 times 3, which is also easy, 27. So simplifying first can make your numbers smaller, which can make multiplying easier. But if you ever have something that you can simplify, you have to simplify it. And even though we already simplified it once, doesn't mean we're done, okay? Doesn't mean that we can't simplify it again. And so this 27, we're going to have to handle this. 3 times 9, 3 times 3. All 3 of these are going to have to come out. This question gives us one other thing that's interesting as well. If we circle these 3's, there's nothing left over, right? Because this 9 is done. And there's nothing left over because 27 is a perfect cube. You may have realized that already, but the cube root of 27 is something that you've already memorized, something you could do in your head, okay? The 3 needs to come out front and join the 20, but there's nothing that is left behind inside the cube root. And so we get -20 times 3, which is -60, and then the cube root of nothing. There's nothing left over, and so that's it. We just put -60, and we're done. As strange as it looks, this thing right here is -60. Very weird, right? Something you probably never would have guessed. Not that you would ever try to guess these questions, but an interesting way to work through it. Now, wake up a bit. I know it's been a little bit of a boring day so far, a little bit of a boring lesson, but it's been easy, which is always good. We're going to handle dividing, and we're going to do this in 2 seconds, okay? Guess what happens when you divide radicals? If you multiply them, you do the outsides together and the insides together. If you divide them, you do the same thing, right? What we're going to do is we're going to divide, and we're going to divide the outsides, 12 divided by 2, which is 6. And we're going to divide 160 divided by 5, which is a little tricky, but we know 5 times 10 is 50. And then we can make that 5 times 30, and it would be 150. And then we need 2 more 5s to make it 160. So we need 5 times 32. So that would be the square root of 32. But basically, with the calculator, this is a piece of cake. 12 divided by 2, 6. 160 divided by 5, 32. Now, you cannot be done if you have something that you can simplify, right? We already looked at 32, but we'll do it one more time just to be sure. That's 4 times 8. That's 2 times 2. That's 2 times 4. That's 2 times 2. We're looking for square roots. We've got a 2 coming outside. We've got another 2 coming outside. and we have a leftover 2. So to finish this question, 1 second. We've got 6 times a 2 coming out front, which is going to be 12. And then we've got 12 times another 2, which is going to be, not a 1, which is going to be 24. And then what's left over on the inside? Just the 2 is left over on the inside. You had a question. What's up? Oh, yes, of course you can go to the bathroom, Kane. You've just messed up my whole YouTube video, man. Just kidding. Everyone on YouTube will know that Aiden needed to go to the bathroom. No big deal. Nah, just go ahead. So that's dividing. It's really a piece of cake. You just take the top number and you divide it by the bottom number. No problem. That is a full walkthrough of how to multiply and divide radicals. Okay, I know it can seem slow, but the good news is that it's not difficult, which is always what you want in math class. Okay, remember when it comes to variables, we only did one question with these. Just write them out a whole bunch of times. Circle them in pairs, right? I don't want to confuse you here, but if this question was cubes, we would just have triplets of x's and triplets of y's. Okay, so however many you need to circle, just circle that many and you will be in good shape. Other than that, work slowly. Remember, multiplication is outsides and insides multiply together. And then remember, for division, it's the same exact thing. Outsides and insides shouldn't be a problem. Okay, hopefully this works for you.